on October 31st, 2024. Time, 11:45 p.m. The small boat rocked under the cold breath of the night wind, creaking like an old man's knees. Around them, the dark waters of the Xochimilco canals glistened under the blood-red moon. The only sounds were the soft lapping of the water against the hull and the distant, almost sorrowful hoot of an unseen owl. Javier tightened his grip on the flashlight. "We shouldn't be here," he muttered, his breath forming a mist in the cold air. "Relax," said Mariana, forcing a laugh that barely concealed her trembling voice. "It's just an island. Dolls can't hurt us." The guide, an old man with hollow cheeks and a wide-brimmed hat pulled low over his face, said nothing. His hands, gnarled and weathered, moved steadily over the oar. Each splash of the paddle felt heavy, deliberate, as if rowing through syrup rather than water. Suddenly, a low, scraping sound brushed along the side of the boat. Everyone froze. Javier swung his flashlight toward the noise. Floating alongside them was a doll, bloated, filthy, its glass eyes cracked, staring up with a dead gaze. Squelch. The boat bumped it softly, and the doll rolled face down into the water, disappearing without a trace. November 1st, 2024. They arrived. La Isla de las Muñecas. A twisted forest of dead trees stretched before them, their limbs tangled with hundreds, no, thousands of dolls. They hung like rotting fruit. Missing eyes, severed limbs, blackened plastic skin, sagging heads. The air reeked of mildew and something faintly sweet, like decayed sugar. The wind stirred the dolls. Creak, creak, creak. A chorus of wooden joints and brittle strings whispered as they swung lazily in the night breeze. "This is wrong," muttered Hector, the group skeptic, trying to laugh it off but failing miserably. "This is all wrong." The old guide finally spoke, his voice like dry leaves. Don Julian tried to protect her, but he failed. "And now they're angry." "Protect who?" Mariana asked, her voice barely above a whisper. But the guide only pointed deeper into the tangled island. Date, November 1st, 2024. They stepped onto the island. Every footstep crunched against brittle leaves and broken doll parts hidden underfoot. Ahead stood a ramshackle hut, its door hanging loose, creaking on rusty hinges. Through the cracked windows, they could see walls lined with more dolls, some pristine, others chewed and rotted by time and insects. Flap, flap. A tattered curtain flailed wildly inside, although the air outside was dead still. Javier moved toward the hut, flashlight trembling in his hand. Each step seemed to weigh heavier, as if the island itself resisted their intrusion. Snap! A twig broke behind him. He whirled around. Nothing. Just the dolls, their blank eyes now seeming somehow aware. He turned back and froze. Standing in the doorway of the hut was a little girl. She wore a white dress stained with dark splotches. Her hair hung over her face, dripping wet. Water pooled at her bare feet, though the ground was bone dry. She lifted one hand slowly and pointed at Javier. The flashlight slipped from his grasp, clattering onto the dirt. Thud, thud, thud. Heavy footsteps came from within the hut, but when they looked again, the doorway was empty. Date, November 1st, 2024. Time, 12:27 a.m. Panic. They stumbled backward, breathing hard. "I saw her. I swear I saw her." Javier cried, his voice cracking. The dolls began to whisper, at first softly, then louder, a cacophony of murmured words, incomprehensible but filled with anger and sorrow. Hector grabbed Mariana's arm. "We need to go. Now." The guide stood by the boat, silently watching, waiting. They turned to flee, but the island shifted. Where there was once a clear path back, now there were only trees, thorny vines, and hundreds of new dolls staring down at them. The ground seemed to pulse under their feet, breathing, alive. Suddenly, the dolls above them began to giggle. High-pitched, broken laughter that filled the night air, scraping against their sanity. Date, November 1st, 2024. Time, 12:38 a.m. They ran blindly, tripping over roots and smashing into low-hanging branches. Snap! Javier fell, screaming as he twisted his ankle. The flashlight beam skittered across the dirt and illuminated a pit filled with broken dolls. And bones. Small, delicate bones. Crunch. Something moved within the pit, rising. A doll, larger than the rest, stitched together from parts of many others, climbed out, dragging itself forward with jerky, unnatural movements. Its mouth opened, and from deep inside, a child's voice shrieked, "Help me!" The friends pulled Javier up and fled, but the stitched doll chased after them, its movement spasmodic, unpredictable, wrong. The air grew thicker, harder to breathe. The trees leaned in closer. The doll's laughter rose to fevered pitch. Screech! The stitched doll lunged at Mariana, who swung a branch at it. It burst apart in a spray of stuffing and blood. Real blood, spattered across her shirt. Date, November 1st, 2024. Time, 12:51 a.m. Finally, they found the edge of the island. The boat waiting, the old guide still unmoving. "Get in!" Javier yelled, but as they clambered into the boat, a sound stopped them. Splash! Something big entered the water behind them. Plop, plop, plop. The water churned, boiling with unseen movement. Suddenly, dozens of drowned dolls bobbed to the surface, gray faces leering, arms reaching, pulling at the boat. The old man smiled, a horrible, knowing smile, and pushed off. As they drifted away, the dolls tried to cling to them, their tiny hands cold and strong. "Stay!" whispered a girl's voice from the shore. They dared to look back. There, standing where they had been only moments before, was the girl in the white dress. Her face lifted, and for the first time, they saw her eyes, black holes that seemed to go on forever. She opened her mouth, and dozens of invisible hands grabbed at their boat, trying to drag them back. Splish splash. They paddled frantically, the boat groaning under the strain, until finally they broke free into open waters. The island shrank behind them, but the laughter followed them across the black canals. Date, November 1st, 2024. Time, 1:25 a.m. Their car wouldn't start. The engine whined, choked, and died. The dolls' whispers grew louder around them, rising from the trees, the earth, even the wind. They abandoned the car and ran. Thud, thud, thud. Footsteps behind them, many footsteps, not human, pattering, dragging across the ground. When they finally reached the village, the sun was beginning to rise. The villagers watched them from behind shuttered windows, crossing themselves as the trio stumbled by. One old woman stepped forward and pressed a small bundle of herbs into Mariana's hands. "You have been marked," she whispered. "The dead child sees you now." They didn't understand what she meant until they returned home. Date, November 2nd, 2024. Time, 3 a.m. That night, as Mariana lay in bed, she heard soft footsteps in her room. She sat up, heart hammering. Nothing there, until she looked at the foot of the bed. The little girl in the white dress stood there, dripping wet, her hair plastered to her face. Slowly, she lifted her hand and pointed at Mariana. The room grew freezing cold. The bed shook violently. Creak, creak, creak. The closet door swung open, and dolls, hundreds of them, crawled out, their heads twisting at impossible angles, their mouths opening and closing in silent screams. Mariana tried to scream, but no sound came out. The girl stepped forward, whispered in her ear, "You shouldn't have left me." The world went black. Date, November 3rd, 2024. Time unknown. When the police found her, Mariana was still sitting upright in bed, eyes wide, mouth frozen in a silent scream. Around her were hundreds of dolls, dirt-caked, rotting, forming a perfect circle. Each doll's cracked lips moved as the officers entered, whispering the same words over and over. "Stay with us.